Hi, this is Danielle and Jonathan with Kepperling Preservation Services for our coffee break today, our preservation coffee break. Today, we're going to talk about paint, but I wanted to do a screen share because we had a question a couple weeks ago about a building in Lancaster. So I wanted to show everybody that building and let you know what we thought about it. So this is the building that we were asked about, and you can see that they're pretty much mirrors of each other. I believe the hospital owns it now, so some of the front entranceways might have been modified for ADA compliance or to make the doors smaller and more secure. Would you agree with that?
Something like that.
Yeah, but they're pretty much mirrors of each other, except this has the stone pillars, and this has wood columns the whole way up, and these columns are shorter. And we drove by and looked at it because it's actually in our neighborhood too. And Jonathan was pretty sure, and we can't see from this picture because we didn't take a picture while we were doing it, but from this picture, Jonathan's pretty sure the house on the left, at some point the porch was modified because of how the trim returned onto the door frame.
Yep, it dives right into the actual frame and sticks out past where the other one dies into the brick. That automatically tells me that it was an addition put on,
or a modification,
or it was modified and put on later.
So that, I don't know if that, hopefully that answers the question that we had about that property. I just wanted to share it and answer the question, because when we were asked it, I knew what corner we were talking about, but I wasn't actually sure about the house. So, okay. And so we're going to talk about paint, and paint's a kind of a tricky topic, but if you have to repaint too often, you risk damaging the historic fabric of your house. So you want to pick a high quality paint that's going to minimize the amount of times that you're going to have to strip and paint. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What was I thinking? The lead-based paint, really, I've heard in a presentation before, saved America's woodwork because it stayed on, it adhered to that wood, it stayed on, and it protected the wood from the weather. Once we started phasing lead out of the paint, and then we have now modified the majority of the oil-based paint you can't buy anymore. The formulas are getting better than they were when we switched completely from oil to latex, but they're
not nowhere.
You don't get the longevity. You're lucky if you get 5 or 7 years out of a paint job. And so the majority, though, of a good paint job is the prep.
Yep.
So making sure that you're painting solid material, even if you don't strip all the paint down. The other thing I would recommend is buying high quality paint. So we just did a project where the homeowner picked a color from a big box store. And
she picked the color, the brand, everything.
Right. And it was darker colors are really hard to
it was a dark red.
Yeah, but darker colors are really hard to get like just doing 1 coat of primer and 2 coats of paint.
Yeah, I ended up doing 3 or 4 coats of paint with the primer.
Yeah. So for those darker, richer colors, those reds, dark blues, dark greens, you want to tint your primer. And if you take your primer to the paint store, they will tint it for you. You just have to tell them you want tinted primer. Black, I guess black would be the other one. But what happened was Jonathan, we usually, when we're estimating a job, we figure 1 coat of oil-based primer, and that's so that it'll absorb into the wood, and you can still buy oil-based primer, and then 2 coats of latex on top. Mm-hmm. So Jonathan did it a couple times. We got a call back maybe a month later saying it really looks splotchy, can you put another coat on? And we wanted her to be happy, so of course we said yes. But I said, when we were talking about it, and then COVID happened and everything kind of slowed down. So when we were talking about it, I said, Jonathan, I'm going to get a quart of Benjamin Moore paint, because they have the most pigments in their paint. Like
as of now.
As of right now, they have the most pigment that you can get domestically. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But they have the most pigment in their paint. So I'm like, if we get this with what's already on there, it's going to give her the look she wants. And so we did that. And but that's something like when you're picking a color, you like, because if you had tried to paint white, you're going to have white streaks through it. Like there's a lot of things and that's part of the prepping of the project. Typically we'll use either Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams, and sometimes it depends on what's spec'd on the job. We bought linseed oil paint to use on our house. In this area of the country, it's hard for it to, and it was kind of an experiment, it's hard for it to cure completely, so then it starts to grow mildew. How they're counteracting that right now is by adding zinc to it to help the curing process and prevent the mildew growth.
Well, the zinc doesn't allow the mildew to grow.
Right. And but then you can order in and buy from local distributors fine paints of Europe. They have a high pigment, but they're high pigment and glossy. So if you want
extremely high pigment.
So if you want glossy, I think I don't
they
know.
Have different
they have
now.
sheens.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, we've used it. It's really hard to work with though. So just know that if you're going to use it, you need to either play with it a little bit or get somebody who has experience putting it on, because
follow the directions exactly.
Yeah, the first time we used it, we were pulling out our hair, but after that we did get better, which I guess is how you're supposed to how life is supposed to go. So then, what was the other? There's the linseed oil. That's one popular. Oh, milk paint. For interior and exterior is an option. We've done a podcast with the Real Milk Paint Company. We're getting ready to use milk paint on an exterior project. So we'll have some feedback on that after we get that painting done. We've never used it exteriorly. Usually we've used it decoratively. Mm-hmm. But it does use exterior too. And it's a non-toxic, literally food-based paint that is good for the environment, and it kind of weathers, according to the man from the Real Milk Paint Company, it kind of weathers like the line-based washes that you see in like Italy, where it just kind of fades away and then you put more on, and it fades away and you put more on, so it doesn't need all that paint prep and things that some of the other paint options have. The modern paints. Yeah. So I'm trying to think, can you think of anything that I didn't cover with paint?
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, and typically, the one coat of oil-based paint, and make sure it's a good quality oil-based, because there's some lesser quality oil-based. And paint is getting expensive, in my opinion. I think for the quart that I just bought to redo that job, I think it was like $40. And the higher end paints are getting in that range.
Because I bought a paint's like $100. Yeah, 80 to 100 for a good one.
For a good one.
But then you get down to the cheaper $20 to $30 ones, and there's really not as much pigment at all.
You do get what you pay for in that case. And we did mention the fine paints of Europe, and they're probably in the $125, $150 range.
And they're a Euro gallon, which is not an American gallon, so it's a little bit smaller.
Yeah. So. But if you have any questions about paints or painting or taking care of your older home, let us know. I know we have blog posts on painting. I know, like, even paint prep. So, check those out. And we will see you next week. Thanks.